So let's start by trying to understand what does a PM typically do, right? I mean, there is a PM is there are a lot of definitions of PM. Some say PM is the CEO of a product. Some say PM has to do end to end, everything about product. He or she needs to do end to end everything about product. But then what are the typical activities of a PM, right? So again, at different stages of career, you might be doing some of these activities more and some less, but we'll try to cover what are the typical activities that you need to do as a PM, right? Even before that, let's take an analogy, right? So since we have quite a few folks who are not who are not product managers yet and who are aspiring to be product managers, let's take a background, right? Let's say you were to build a house, right? Let's take an analogy of that, right? You were to build a house. So how do you go about building a house, right? You'd first, let's say you are a contractor or you're an architect who's building a house, right? So how do you go about building a house, right? So you first there's a customer who reaches out to you and says, you know what, I have a plot of land and I want to build a house here. So as an architect, you would first discuss with the customer to understand, hey, what type of house do you want? Do you want a duplex house? Do you want a multi-story house? Do you want to build a shop? What kind of building do you want to construct here, right? Try to understand what are his or her needs, so that you can accordingly come up with a plan, right? So that's the first thing that you would do. This is what we call as in product terminology, this is what is called as the product strategy, right? So we try to understand, hey, what are the very broad needs of the customer? What is the directionally, what are where do we want to get to? What is the goals that we want to achieve over a longer period of time to build a very effective product, right? So then what do you do? Then, if you're building a house, you got an understanding of what the customer wants. Then you try to create a blueprint, right? You try to create a plan of the house, right? You try to say, hey, this is where the hall is going to be. This is where the bedroom is going to be. Or this is where the washrooms are going to be, right? And then you work with the customer to figure out if they like the plan or not, right? This is pretty much what we call as the product roadmap or prioritization, right? So we need to in case of a product roadmap, what you're trying to do is, hey, these are broadly, these are the things that we want to build, and this is how our high level plan is going to look like. This at the end of the day, this is what the blueprint of your product is going to look like. That's what we call as the product roadmap, right? Then then you go to the once you've decided, you finalize the blueprint of the house. What do? You decide the specifics of the house, right? You decide, hey, what kind of bricks do I want to lay? What's the concrete I'm going to use, or what's what is the structural elements that I'm going to use in building the house, right? So this is what we call as the product features, the product backlog, right? So when you start building a product, you think of what are the features, what are the the lower level features, the lower level implementation details, that's how is it going to look like, and what order are we going to build that, right? That's the product requirements, the features, right? So once you've decided that, you've kind of built a high structure of the house, you have the building blocks of the house, right? The next thing you'll probably decide as as an architect, you'd want to get an interior designer and say, hey, what's the color of the different rooms? What's the color combination that I should be using? What is the plumbings or what is the fittings that should be there in the house, right? So this is typically what we define as the user experience, right? So while the user or the customer is going to live in the house, there is an experience that we want to create for the customer, right? To make it easy, to make it really pleasing for the customer to use the house, right? So that's where over and about designing the house, you're also talking about the finer elements, finer aspects of the experience within the house. That's equivalent to the user experience definition in while building a product, right? And once you're done with all of this, you typically try to create, if you bought a house, or if you've built a house, or even if your parents or someone has built a house, that the architect typically gives you a plan. He says that, hey, I'll complete building the first floor in X days. I'll complete building the next floor in Y days and whatnot, right? So architect is going to give you a bunch of milestones, right? And as a customer, you're going to track against it, right? You're going to say that, hey, the architect promised delivery of the ground floor or the basement in the first year, right? Or in 6 months. So has it been done or not, right? this is pretty much similar to what we call as the planning or tracking in product management, right? So we, as a product manager building software and even non-software products, right? You're going to plan the execution. You're going to plan. You're going to track the execution. You're going to identify risks of how the execution. If there are risks in the execution, and make sure you mitigate those risks, right? And finally, once, as an architect, you'd complete the building the house, you'd hand it over to the customer, you'd take the feedback. If there are minor feedbacks from the customer, you'd basically call the customer for, doing a validation, or try to, do a check before taking the handover of the house, right? So that's pretty much what we call as a product launch and the adoption, right? So you are trying to, once the product is ready, you're trying to do some A/B tests. You're trying to get those feedbacks, initial feedbacks from the customers. Try to see if those feedbacks needs to be incorporated in a product, and eventually launch the product. Provide the details to the customers as to how the product needs to be used, right? So pretty much this is what the different activities of a PM, right? When you're building any kind of a product, you're starting from what is the strategy, what are the high level goals that I need to achieve, what's the roadmap, what's the requirements, what is the user experience, how do I create a plan, track against the plan, execute the product development, and finally launch, and eventually make sure that you build a product for a large set of consumers or customers. You want to make sure that they really adopt it, right? So you want to make sure that there's a feedback loop, trying to figure out what's going wrong, how do I make more customers adopt the product, and at the end of the day, all of this is towards a business goal, right? So, okay, now even before you think that, hey, this is way too many things that a PM does, right? You might feel it might be overwhelming, right? Initially, when I got to know what a product manager was, I myself got overwhelmed, right? But it's not that you're going to do all of this by yourself. A product manager works. There's a lot of collaboration that a product manager has to do, right? So let's say if the product manager has to do this planning and tracking, right? There would be program managers that a product manager can work with to figure out the program plan and help in tracking, right? The product manager needs to do the execution, right? It's not that the product manager is expected to do coding by himself or herself, right? There would be a development team. There would be a development manager who would typically manage, how the overall coding would happen. If there are issues, they would help managing it, right? So you are more of an interface, trying to make sure things are going in the right track. Then user experience, right? Some of you might feel that, hey, I'm not an expert in what font needs to be used or what color combination needs to be used, right? So there are user experience designers, there are user experience experts with whom you would work with to define, hey, how should the experience look like, right? You probably, you're providing the guidelines, but they are the ones who typically create the wireframes, create how the look and feel of the product is going to look like. So you're largely collaborating with multiple teams, right? Even in case of launch, right? It's not like you would be sending out a launch email to every customer, right? There's a marketing team which takes care of making sure the hype is created around the product, the customers understand how the product needs to be used, etc. Right? So you'll be working with multiple teams, multiple stakeholders while building the product, while you own the product, the vision, the product strategy, and executing the product end to end. It's not like you're alone in this whole game. There's a lot of stakeholders with whom you'll be working with to make sure a product is delivered successfully, right? And any product that you take, right, from iPhone to a Kindle to WhatsApp to whatever, right? There's a big group of people working behind. There is a product manager, but the product manager relies on a big team to deliver this product.
Right. So, Gautham, I had a question here. There are some products which are really huge products, right? Like, for example, if you look at a product like Google Pay, now that itself, from what I know, there are multiple product managers working on just this single product. So how does that work, and what is the idea of having multiple product managers when you're looking at a large product like Google Pay?
Yeah, so typically what happens is when it's a large product, it gets hard for one product manager or one development team to manage the entire product, right? Because something like a Google Pay, things that we know, as a user, we know that there is a user experience, there is a backend that does the transaction, does UPI payments and all. But there is a lot more to it, right? There's things that we don't know, right? Things like compliance, right? There is a financial platform. So there is an RBI compliance that we need to take care. There is customers data safety that you need to take care, right? So there's a lot of mini products within the overall product, right? So what typically happens is the product is broken down into mini products of sorts, right? So think of Google Pay as more like a product portfolio which has multiple smaller products which come together in executing that whole experience for the customer.
Yeah.
So, product managers, typically there are breadth product managers, there are depth product managers. Breadth product managers, own portfolios, they own multiple products. Depth product managers own, go into a specific product, but much more deeper, right? So depending on the requirement of the firm, whether, they need a lot more depth in each of the mini products, or they need a breadth of experience, breadth of, being able to connect different products. The companies typically figure out, what level does the product manager have to be present, and accordingly they would hire multiple product teams, right? But largely, something that's industry wide accepted is if you're a product manager, I'm talking about middle management, product management. So if you're a product manager, you typically be working with development teams of about 15 to 20 developers. And that's typically the scope, right? So that if a product has to be built and it needs 100 developers, that probably needs, it needs to be broken down into mini products, and it probably needs 6, 7 product managers. That's
Right.
how it works.
Right. So one more question I had on this, and thank you, Krishna, for asking this. So some companies, like for example, Microsoft uses program managers are, do the job of a product manager, or they are called program managers in Microsoft. There is, sometimes they use product owner or product manager as to, are they like same, or are they different, or is it more around what companies look at as what they have a title as? How does this work? Product manager, product owner, program managers. What is the major difference behind around this?
There is an industry standard definition for a product manager, product owner, and program manager. There's industry standard definitions, but then companies not necessarily follow this definition. Each company creates their own product manager or a product owner role. There are titles that the companies follow, but one of the caveats that I would typically tell people looking for product management roles is irrespective of the name of the role, go through the GD, make sure it is, if you want to get into a product management role, then make sure it is truly a product management role, right? Oftentimes, the role might be called a product management, but it could be a completely different role, right? So having said that caveat, let me define the industry standard role, right? So product manager, we pretty much know, right? So I just spoke about what are the activities of a product manager, end to end, right? Now, what does a program manager do, right? Program manager, the typical expectation of program manager is to, the focus would be on the planning and tracking the product development. That's a very deep area, though it's just represented as one lane item here. That involves, multiple teams working together, managing dependencies, managing risks, mitigating those risks. That involves a lot of subtasks, right? The program manager is, at the end of the day, he or she is trying to stitch a program together, stitch multiple teams together, make sure the deliveries are aligned correctly and they happen in the right time frame, so that the product meets the timelines that were set for the product, right? So that's what a program manager typically does, right? And again, I see a question on program manager can have multiple product managers working under him. So again, right, in an ideal scenario, product team is different from a program team. Program team can work with multiple product managers. A program manager can work with multiple product managers. Just as I said, right, if there are multiple dependencies for building a product, there are multiple different dependencies from other products, right? So he or she can work with multiple product managers, and vice versa is also possible, right? When a product manager is say a breadth kind of a product manager, and he or she has to work with multiple program managers to build the product, right? So all combinations are possible. It's not like program managers work under product managers or product managers work under program managers. It's completely two separate set of teams. Having said that, coming back to quickly on the product owner, right? Product owner is a much more nuanced role. So when you're doing the execution, Some of you might have heard of Scrums, Agile, these kind of things, right? So product owner works very closely just with a single development team, making sure that the Scrum Agile ceremonies, right? So these are ways of or techniques of product development, right? These are operational techniques of product developments. So the product owner specifically works with a particular team, making sure that they adhere to these operational best practices while during the development to ensure that the development processes are followed. That's what a product owner does.
Right, cool. So, coming to the next part, right? More from what are the skills that are really required to become a very good product manager? So, if I have to, pitch to a MBA program or a B school that I want to become a product manager, what are the things that I should be focusing on highlighting? And, how do we highlight these aspects from, your profile to saying that, okay, I have these skills and this is the reason why I want to become a product manager. I see myself becoming a product manager after an MBA.
Okay. If you look at this list, right? So this is by no means an exhaustive list, and no means an expectation that you need to have all of these skills to become a successful product manager. You can start with some of these skills, even while applying for an MBA, or once you become a product manager, you can start with some of the skills and you start building the other skills through experience, right? That's typically the modus operandi. So you start with there is obviously leadership skills involved, right? So you are having to work with multiple teams. You're working with you're leading a product of sorts, right? When you're leading you may not be a manager of product managers, but you're leading a product, right? You are taking a lot of decisions, right? So definitely leadership skills. And as I said earlier, right, communication, collaboration is absolutely needed. Your communication has to be crystal clear, whether it is written communication, oral, whatever kind of communication, right? It has to be very, very clear. It needs to make sense to everyone. And that's how you drive alignments, you drive necessary dependencies, getting those closed on time, right? The other thing which is not stressed enough, I feel, is customer empathy, right? Being able to put yourself in the shoes of a customer and trying to figure out what does the customer really want. A lot of times we call this as the latent requirements, right? Customer does not know what he or she wants, but then you got to figure out what he or she wants, right? There's one famous quote said by Henry Ford, that if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said they need faster horses, but then he went ahead and built a car, right? So customers typically don't know what they want. It's for you to put yourself in their shoes to understand what they really need and then build a product accordingly, right? And then all of this also comes under business goals, right? There is the business sets you goals. They have a revenue target, they have profitability targets and whatnot, right? You need to make sure you're building the product adhering to those business goals or the business strategy. Then there is analytical thinking. It's essential that you're able to think analytically, and a couple of points down, you also have database decision making, right? So you're able to there will be a lot of scenarios where you're taking decisions, right? And these decisions, not necessarily, sometimes you have data, then you need to be data driven. You need to be able to make understand the data and make the right decisions on what is the direction the product needs to take or how a feature needs to be built. On the other side, a lot of times the data may not be there, right? You need to be able to build the right hypothesis as to, what someone would like, right? A great example would be, how Kindle was built, right? If I were to ask people, what is a ebook reader that they're aware of, people would typically say Kindle, right? But Kindle was not the first ebook reader. In fact, it was not even the third ebook reader to have been launched, right? Sony launched the first ebook reader long time back in '98 or so. Kindle came many years later. But what they did, very interestingly, is they had the customer empathy and they understood that, hey, they built the right hypothesis, right? They understood that, hey, a customer does not want to use an e-reader just for convenience. Customer wants to emulate or replicate a book reading experience, right? So Kindle has been built in such a format that while it enables ease of reading, it also makes sure that you are having the book reading experience, right? It built that experience. This is a hypothesis that was rightly built and which made Kindle quite popular, whereas other ebook readers, I'm sure we wouldn't know even one more ebook reader other than Kindle.
That's so
Right?
true.
Yeah. Um, so moving on to the next one, working under pressure. I would rather say working with multiple teams. Right? There's always too many things to do, but too little time. So you should be able to prioritize really well, whether it is prioritizing what needs to be built in the product or prioritizing your own time. You need to really really understand what is very very important, very very urgent, and try to make sure that those things are handled, because there's always too many things to do and too less of time. And finally, planning and execution. I covered this in the previous slide as well. It's not about just putting a strategy and writing some requirements. At the end of the day, if you're not able to execute it and really bring out the product to the fore, or bring out any project, right? Even if you've not worked as a product manager, if you're not able to bring out a project or bring out a delivery to the fore, right? It really does not matter, right? You can have great plans, you can have great strategies, great thoughts, but nothing works unless you can deliver a product and translate that to revenue or profit.
Right.
These are typically these skills, I would say.
So there are a lot of people who are asking this question, that how much of technical expertise is required for you to become a product manager?
I would say zero, and this is based on my experience, right? I have seen, I myself came from a software background, and I became a product manager. But I know, many of my friends, right? They've come from, they've one of my friends has come from a mechanical engineering background, has never coded in his life, but became a product manager, and he's top-notch product manager, best in the game, right? There's another, there are a few more friends who've not even come from an engineering background. They come from commerce, pure science backgrounds, right? They've come from different backgrounds, but each of these backgrounds, see, at the end of the day, the goal is not to be able to code, right? The goal is to be able to think analytically, think logically, right? Irrespective of whether you come from an engineering background, there are doctors who are product managers, right? Irrespective of whether you come from an engineering background, professional sciences, pure sciences, whatever background you come from, as long as you're able to think analytically, coding is just a skill. If you really have to learn it for software development, you could always learn it. It's probably just couple of weeks you spend, and you can. There's so many courses online, right, from free courses in YouTube to Udemy and whatnot, right? So coding is just a skill. It can be learned pretty easily. You just don't need any software knowledge to become a product manager.
Right, right. And again, product management need not be always technical, right? I think that's the next thing that we are going to touch upon, which is different types of product management. Is this should I go to the next slide where we are going
Yeah,
to
you
talk?
could go to the next slide.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So as you rightly pointed out, Shrikala, product management does not have to be technical. There are different types of product managers. Product management is, unlike 5 to 8 years before, where they were generalist product managers. People are specializing within product management. The product managers have taken up specialist roles where they focus on a particular aspect of a product, and they build on that. For example, I'm a platform PM. I build platforms which enables other developers to build their product on these platforms, right? Let me give an example. Now, you might have heard of cloud. You might have, people here would have heard of AWS and Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud AI, right? Google Cloud. So what these cloud platforms are offering is they build simple software products which could be used by other developers to build their complex software products, right? So these are platforms, right? These platforms will allow you to come in, build your own product, provide those capabilities to build your own products, and then subsequently launch those products for the users, right? So that's what a platform PMS. Again, as I said, great example is AWS, Azure, and whatnot. So then you have your growth PMs, right? So growth PMs are responsible for growth or customer acquisition explosion, right? Their primary focus is, hey, what has to be done to get a lot more customers to this, right? These PMs, they are okay. Quickly, platform PMs are the ones where technical knowledge is needed. You need to understand software, the backend, and all of that. So you need some technical knowledge. But once you move to a growth PM, you're no longer worried about technical knowledge, right? You're worried about, how are you able to understand, the customer empathy aspect I talked about. How are you able to understand what exactly a customer needs, or what is that particular functionality which would explode the growth, right? Which will make sure that a lot more customers come in and use the product. Ideally identify those leverage areas, right? Which would and build those growth-oriented initiatives for the product, right? A great example I would say is Uber's referral model, right? Back in the days when Uber had come back in 2015, Uber had this referral model which said, if you refer a person, you get 100 rupees ride free and they get 100 rupees ride free, or 200 rupees, you get one ride free or they get one ride free, right? This is a great leverage idea, which, someone who really understand what the customer is looking for, what will make more customers adopt this product, that's the kind of person who can come up with these kind of strategies and build the right products, right? So this is what a growth PM is, right? And another great example is LinkedIn thrives on network, right? How many people connect with each other, right? So if you looked at LinkedIn, there is this people you may know or people you want to connect kind of a tab, right? So that helps people to connect more. The more links and more connectivities formed between people, that's how LinkedIn makes their revenue, right? So these are all what a typical growth PM would do. Then you have the data analytics AI PM. This is a fairly new vertical that has come up, especially the AI PMs. It's something that's been around for the last 3-4 years, I would say. So these PMs are focused on the data, right? They are very good with understanding huge volumes of data, trying to generate insights out of those huge volumes. And when I mean huge volumes of data, I'm talking about few 100 million users data, right? Something like a Netflix where hundreds of millions of users are there, and you got to figure out what is the experience for so many users, right? So how do you figure out what is the experience for so many users? What would they like, right? Things like if you go to Netflix, you would have seen people or movies that you would be interested in, or shows that you would be interested in, right? So how is it developed for so many hundreds of millions of users, right? There's a big data platform that runs behind that tries to understand the user behavior, personalization for every single user, and then suggests movies, right? There's AI that's working behind. So that's one, and there's also ads personalization. Google, if you see, you go and search something on Google, then you go to YouTube, you get an ad about it, right? There's huge volumes of data. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of terabytes of data being utilized to generate this, right? So the PM, analytics PM or the data PM typically focuses on getting those insights or building those functionalities for a large volume of users, handling very high volume of data. Then you have the user experience, the user interface PM, right? Again, fairly straightforward. This PM focuses primarily on the front end of a software, especially what is the user experience. I mean, and not just software, right? It could be even a car for that matter. A product manager who's building a car, he or she would be responsible for how the look and feel of the car should be. Right. So a great example is how WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp made the whole messaging experience obsolete because of the ease of usage of WhatsApp, right? It's not that WhatsApp did something fantastic. It did not give a completely different functionality, at least back in the days when it came. It was simple messaging platform, which is what SMS was already offering us. But the kind of experience it offered, the kind of interface that it offered, people really loved that interface and they moved over to WhatsApp, right? Even before the calls and even before those groups and all of those things happened, even then WhatsApp was really beating down the traditional SMS, right? So that's an example of UX UI PM. So broadly, this is how the whole different verticals of PMs are. There's also different industries that you could work with. There's within software, outside of software, there are multiple industries as well. Industries is just a huge list. I'm not going to go into industries, but just the types of PMs defined by their role is what I want to cover here.
Right. So, what I understand from a lot of people who are asking questions is everybody thinks it's all about technology and product management is all about being a technical product manager. Whereas I feel even in, say, for example, in the insurance sector, if you go to, any Bajaj Finance or any of the insurance companies, they have so many products that they have created. And that also can be considered as a product, right, for them, because they have to go through the same thing of understanding the customers, of figuring out the user need, to understand the experience. If you look at Airtel, if the number of plans they have or the number of products they have around it, whether it's Airtel Live or Crick Info or whatever they have, which I never use, but they have so many products, and I think that's also what product managers are focusing on, and that is also the things that they are looking at, and that also comes into the purview of whatever product they can offer to a customer. Correct?
Correct. So I've been talking a lot about technology products. I think that might be a reason why people might be confused, right? The reason why I'm giving technology examples is, irrespective of whatever background the participants are from, they would, everyone interacts with technology. They've used WhatsApp, Netflix, and also it's easy examples. That's why I'm giving that. But let me try to give an example from something completely different, right? If any of you have done, as Shrikla pointed out, right? If you if you've bought insurance, right? There is typically a product manager behind defining or designing that insurance product for you, right? This product manager decides that, hey, you know what, my customers are typically in the, let's take a health insurance, right? My customers are typically in the range of 20 to 30 years. These are the ailments that they would suffer. So these are the kind of hospitals that they would be visiting. This is the there's an insurance product manager who's defining what are the features of the insurance product, what should be the pricing of the insurance product, how do I market this insurance product to more people, right? So it's not necessary that you have to be technical, and it's not necessary that product management is only technology. In fact, I would say, this software is one aspect. There's a lot of things outside of software where product managers do work. So it's not necessary that you have to be, if you're a product manager, it's not necessary that you have to be working in software related products, and B, it's not necessary, even if you're working in software related products, you need to know technical, right? You need to have a great technical knowledge, right? As I said, platform PMs probably need technical knowledge. Data PMs, they need to understand how to work with data, right? UX PMs need to understand how a font or color schema and all of those things, they need to understand the experience of products, right? Growth PMs, they literally don't need any technology experience or technical knowledge, right? They are here to figure out, unlock those capabilities to scale products big time, right? To scale users big time. They really don't need to worry about, hey, is this feature even buildable or not, right? They are there to figure out what has to be built and provide that information to a technical team, which will figure out how it can be built.
Right. I think you've put down some profiles of product managers, which across different industries here. You want to take a shot at this?
Yeah. So this is a product manager, who's worked, if you see, worked in operations, worked as a design engineer, software engineer, and eventually moved into product management. So this product manager was working with Walmart, and he moved, in the operations team, and from there he moved into the product manager role, right? So these kind of changes within companies are definitely possible. So and it's not necessary that you have to be a developer to be a product manager. You can come from an operations role, you can come from a marketing role, and still make that transition into a product management. The caveat is not all companies encourage this. There are certain companies that provide you paid path. For example, a LinkedIn, which provides you a program for non-product managers to get into product management, right? There are some companies that encourage this. They provide a program, they provide opportunities to move, but it's not for all companies. Next slide, Shrikla. Yeah. So again, right, this is an example of a platform product manager. So this product manager has worked with Amazon and moved into AWS, focusing on building cloud products. And if you see, he's also written technical product management, right? As I said, the technical aspect typically comes only when you're managing platforms, right? Platform product managers are expected to be technical. They need to understand a lot more of the back end, the technical aspects. But there are other types of product management where you don't need to understand much about technical, just a working knowledge of, even if you're able to speak to developers, right, in a language that they understand. Right? They're not to come and tell you, hey, this is an algorithm that I'm going to use, or this is the simple things like, hey, I'm going to use a server. What is a server? It's a basic your fundamental knowledge, right? So that should be good enough. If you're not a platform PM, any other PM, that should be pretty much good enough, even if you're a software product manager.
Right. So there are more questions, but what we'll do is maybe we can take that in the end because they are more slightly specific questions. Next, the most important aspect, right? Everybody's talking about AI impact on product management roles. So what are your thoughts on that? And, how is it making life better? Or is it something that people have to be worried about? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So my take is with this Chat GPT coming in, I think there's questions about, hey, will PM role be relevant, or not just PM, right? I mean, will a software developer role be relevant? Will a operations role be relevant? Will a marketing role be relevant? Will a writing role be relevant? So there are questions about every single job these days, right? Once Chat GPT has come. Let me just focus on the product management part, right? My take is product management will continue to be relevant. ChatGPT cannot replace what a product manager does, and I'm just going to quickly talk about, just calling back some of the skills that we talked about for a product manager, right? The human element or the customer empathy that is involved in a product discovery process, right? What does a product really need? I don't think Chat GPT will be able to figure out the Kindle example that I gave earlier, right? A Chat GPT will never be able to figure out that, hey, what users want a book reading experience, but they don't want to use books, but an e-reader which would be able to get books quickly, right? So that kind of insights, that kind of customer empathy is something that Chat GPT, even with the volumes of data that you provide to Chat GPT would not be able to recognize it, right? Because the fact of the matter is the customer himself or herself does not realize it, right? They have what they know is they have a problem, but they're probably not the best at solving that problem. What a product manager does is product manager understands the core of the problem and tries to solve that problem. It comes up with innovative solutions to solve the problem, and that's something that Chat GPT I don't think can replace, right? The second thing is communication and driving alignments, right? You, as a product manager, you're working with so many teams. You're working with different people at different levels, senior leaders. Sometimes you're handling handling difficult people also, right? It's not that everyone is going to accept your proposals, right? So there is a lot of soft skills, softer aspects, building those networks, building those connects, having clear communication, driving those alignments, making sure that your stakeholder really understands what you're trying to do, right? Those are things that Chat GPT will not be able to do. Probably it can help you, get a document, but then it's not necessary that they understand who's the reader of the document and accordingly draft a document, right? So that level of nuances is something that a product manager can get to, right? And then critical thinking, analytical thinking, building, deriving the right insights and then deriving the right inputs for a product based on those insights. That's something that Chat GPT can identify patterns at best and say that, hey, a lot of customer feedback is coming on this area, right? But figuring out what the solution should be, that's something that's totally on a product manager's range of work, right? And finally, the decision making itself, right? And if you ask ChatGPT, if you try these questions on ChatGPT, you would know, right? If you ask ChatGPT to take financial decisions, or ask you to ask ChatGPT to price a product, right? ChatGPT would typically not do that, right? And the reason is very simple, right? When it involves profits, when it involves dollars, when it involves rupees revenue, ChatGPT is not. ChatGPT does not want to take those decisions, right? It might lead to losses, etc., right? So that's where a product manager, again, the human element, right? Product manager takes into consideration multiple inputs, right? Whether it is business, there could be technical, data, user experience, whatever, right? There are different aspects that a product manager takes into consideration, and then finally takes the right decisions, right? So again, this is something that it's going to be hard for ChatGPT to replace. And so I feel, as it's not about if ChatGPT would replace PMs. I don't think it will ever going to replace PMs. PMs bring in a very different skill set, and PMs would be relevant even even if ChatGPT develops much more. But should we go to the next slide, Shitla?
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, so yes, I think my internet has some issue. I'll just.
Okay.
So my next aspect of it is then how do I, leverage AI as a product manager, and how are you leveraging AI as a product manager?
Yeah, so this is what I do, right? I've literally put together these items from what I have been, how I have been using generative AI, the technology behind ChatGPT, right? So typically, any kind of secondary research that I need to do, where I need to Google some information, try to understand more about customers, right? ChatGPT does it for me, right? I need to ask the right questions, and ChatGPT would do that market research, would do that customer research, right? Earlier, there used to be, I need to work with research teams who'd go and do a customer research, would talk to large volumes of customers, come back with insights and whatnot, right? Come back with their response. Basically, insights is something that PM derives. But now it's become a lot more easier. If you want to do secondary research, you don't need to talk to thousands of customers. Chat GPT. There's a lot of data on the internet that Chat GPT parses, and it'll try to give you a very small, concise version of a research that you have to do, right? So that's something that I regularly use Chat GPT for. Then another thing that I try to do is, analyze customer feedback data. Again, customer feedbacks. When you have a product, customers give a lot of feedback. There's tons of feedbacks coming in, tons of reviews, tons of responses coming in, and sometimes you want to identify patterns, right? You don't want to read through all of those feedbacks. You want to see if there are broad patterns that come out of these feedbacks, right? That's another area where I throw all the feedbacks in generative AI, Chat GPT. So ChatGPT is a backend AI technology. So you can throw the data into generative AI, and that would give you the patterns, right? It would say that, hey, majority of the customers are talking about this particular pain point or that particular pain point. That's something that it will do. Then, really writing the first version of documents, whether it is product requirements, marketing content, launch announcement. The first version is something that ChatGPT can give you out of the box. You could just mention what are the different things that you want to talk about, and if you give that information, ChatGPT would give you that first version. Obviously, that, as I said earlier, that is not the version that you could share with the stakeholders, especially if you're trying to drive alignments. But it would give you that first version, which you could then start enhancing, which you could then start improvising based on who the reader is, who the consumer of the document or consumer of the information is, and then accordingly tweak and share that, right? So generative AI definitely has made life easier for PMs, but it's not replacing PMs for sure.
Right, right. And I think the more important part, and somebody's just put that on the question, is, everybody says that, ChatGPT throws all generic stuff. It is, generic because that's what you've prompted it to do. So if it's more like you have to ask the right questions to get the right answers. I think, that is something that you'll have to really focus on sharpening your skills around the prompt engineering aspect of it.
So whoever asked this question, definitely look up prompt engineering. So this is a new field of study that's being developed now, where what is the right way to ask questions to get the answer that you want from ChatGPT, right? That's what prompt engineering is about. Google about it. There's a lot of content online, or just ChatGPT about it, right? You might get content easily.
That's true. So, how does an MBA fit into this whole plan? Right now, like you said, there are certain set of skills that you need to have to get into a product manager role. Where does MBA fit in, and how does MBA help you get better at the product management role? Because there are people, there are people who are putting on the chat also, there's somebody who's a product and owner with 20 years of technical experience, or someone who's already into product management, who might not have done an MBA. In your view, since you've gone through this whole process, you've worked with companies like Amazon and Intuit post your MBA, how has your perspective changed, or how do you think you are a better product management manager today because you have this understanding of business or business management with you as part of your journey?
Yeah, first thing I would say, MBA is not absolutely necessary to become a product manager, but what MBA does is MBA really fast tracks your career into product management, right? So MBA, that 1 year, 2 year that you're spending, it gives you all the knowledge that would take you probably 5, 6 years to collect through pure work experience, right? So right from understanding, how a business works, how does profit and loss work, how does the different domains of business work, right? Like how does an operations work, how does marketing work? I say, as you might have seen that I've been talking about the product manager needs to work with operations, marketing, different teams while delivering a product, right? So you need some working knowledge of how each of these aspects work, right? It's not that without any knowledge you'd be able to do this, right? So an MBA would give you that quick understanding of how the basics of each of these different business domains, how they work, general business knowledge, financial knowledge, and all of that, right? MBA also helps you, these days there's a lot of soft skills courses that come along with the MBA, right? Things like negotiation, things like, structured thinking, right? Which would help you in this whole analytical thinking aspect. And there are also, a lot of analytics courses that are covered these days with MBA, right? MBA also has, business analytics courses, which helps you deal with data, right? Which helps you understand how you do those database decision making. How do you derive insights out of data, right? So MBA kind of gives you that generalist view across different aspects of product management, which will help you catapult into the product management career, right? When having said that, it's not necessary that you have to do an MBA. You could also do outside, right? And some of the things I've put here, right? You need to build your knowledge about technology trends, industry trends. If it's outside of technology, then whatever domain that you are in, understand those trends. There are a bunch of online courses, bunch of cohorts. You could also do some internships, build your own product portfolios and whatnot, right? But having all of this, there are some limitations. There is some time limitation, especially associated with it. Building all of this by yourself through work experience is going to take some time. The primary thing that MBA would do is it'll really fast track your learning to be a product manager. For myself, I think the knowledge that I gained from my MBA was really useful in quickly understanding and getting to the bottom of different products that I've been working in. Right, I've worked in e-commerce, I've worked in social media, I worked in. I'm currently working in fintech space, right? In all of these cases, I typically use some knowledge that I've gained in MBA. We learned about e-commerce, we learned about finance, we learned about social media and web analytics and whatnot, right? So all of these courses that I've taken up in MBA helped me quickly build those basics and build my knowledge over and above that, and which helps me in taking the right decisions.
Right, right. So what I would like to do now is I would like to take questions. And before I take questions, I just want to let everyone know that all of you who are attending, look out for a mail from me tomorrow, where I'm going to send you two specific things. One is a booklet that focuses on 50 unique profiles that have got into top MBA programs this year. And you can get an idea of GMAT scores, what has been their background, what has been their story. That will give you a great insight on your fitment, or maybe get an idea about your fitment. And the second thing is more around, the whole Crackverbal process of admission consulting. If you'd like to know more about it, maybe you could go through that brochure and get more understanding of that. So all of you are attending tomorrow, please look out for an email from me. And take a look at it, and please let us know what your thoughts are, and we would love to know more about and get some feedback around it too. So I think I can get on to the questions now. Let me look at the Q&A box. It says, I'm from a government, I'm a government employee, work for a municipal corporation. Can I become a product manager?
Anyone can become a product manager. As I said, you've gone through the skills, right? See if you really aspire to be a product manager, and see if you can build those skills. If you can build those skills, I think anyone can become a product manager. And in my career, I've seen so many people from various backgrounds, people from government jobs, people doing so many different things, eventually coming and being product managers. So purely based on experience, I can say anyone can become a product manager.
Right. I'm just scrolling through all the questions right now, because
while you're scrolling through, I'll quickly answer one question, Shikla. I saw a question about how do I choose between, this question from Madhup, right? How do I choose between engineering career versus PM career? Any significant pay disparities? I think pay is a question that a lot of people ask. It is company specific. In general, pretty much the pay is at the same range. There's not a huge difference. An engineering manager and a product manager would typically earn the same, not software developer. Product manager's salary would be higher than a software developer salary. But if you're a machine learning or an applied science engineer, then you're probably going to earn more than an engineering manager or a product manager, right? So that's a hot thing. So yeah.
Right. There's one more question, and I think that's interesting too, which is, can somebody who is from a non-tech background get into a technology product management role? So completely.
Absolutely. I think if you feel you're a logical person, technology software is all pure logic, right? If you feel you're a logical person, you can understand basic logic, you can get into it. There's tons of free courses on YouTube. Just go search for how to learn technology as a product manager. There's tons of free courses. Just go through those courses and you should be sorted, right? Again, as I said, enough examples of people from political science background who become product managers, and I've seen all scenarios. So you don't need to know anything about science or for that matter, nothing about computer science.
Right. So I'm seeing a lot of questions where somebody is talking about civil engineering to product management,
Anything is
government
possible.
to product management. So yeah, so
All
the
possible.
answer is
All
all
possible.
possible. Yes.
All possible, right? And
Mechanical to
and
product
not
management.
just product management, right? Great example is I know a friend who's a BCom graduate, who's an engineer, who's a engineering architect today, right? So it's not that's much more technical, right? If you are a product manager, you need to know technical probably to some extent, but he or she, they went on to become an architect who needs to know a lot more about technology, really design how technology works and all of that, right? So all of it is possible.
Right. There's one question here. It says, taking the example of the Uber referral program that you spoke about, does the PM come up with the idea of creating such campaigns, or someone in the strategy department does this? Who comes up with the strategy that we need to create something like this?
Ideas can come from anywhere, right? PM can come up with the ideas, or strategy team can come up with the ideas. Anyone can come up with the ideas. But typically, it is expected that the PM owns this problem, right? So whatever I said, PM owns the growth problem, right? It's not the strategy team that owns the problem. Strategy team would own the outcomes. PM owns the problem, right? So the PM could, in discussion with a software developer, can come up with a marketing solution, right? That's totally acceptable. At the end of the day, all the teams are working towards bringing in more revenue, bringing in profitability, right? So it's not necessarily that PM has to ideate everything. It's not like a big responsibility that, hey, you have to be creative, you have to keep ideating everything. You're trying to solve problems, you're going to discuss with a lot of people. Someone might provide an idea, that could be a great idea, right? You should be open-minded, take ideas from anywhere.
Right. Another thing is, when you are looking at an MBA program, there are a lot of specializations. Do they need to go through do MBA programs have specific specializations for them, or to equip them to become better product managers, or how does that work?
Not necessary, and Shikla, I think you're a better expert on this than me, so I'd lean on to your answer as well. There are specializations that are provided. It's not necessary, I would say. You could, do an operation specialization and still be a product manager. It's not necessary. There are a lot of specific specialized courses that are coming up. I mean, you could do that, you could not do that. I wouldn't say it's absolutely needed to be a product manager.
Right. And I think just to add to what Gautham also mentioned, right? So there are specific, if you go and look at the curriculum of, say, Tepper, right, which is Carnegie Mellon, or there are some specific schools where they will have specific, specializations around product management. Again, the idea is, like Gautham also mentioned, right? It's not just one thing you need to know. There are so many things you need to know. So, basically an MBA will equip you in all directions to get better at whatever you do as a product manager, right? So again, there is nothing like a specialization. Maybe some like data analytics or a data science course could be something that can equip you to become a better product manager.
These are not must-haves to be a product manager. These are good to have, these specializations to become a product manager.
So I have someone who's asking this question. I'll just read it out because it's been repeated many times. How will an MBA give you an edge when people land in the same job after MEM degrees, for example, Duke offers an MEM program that lands jobs for senior product managers in Amazon. People do MBA also, and they do the same job. So there is a 50% difference. Okay. So his question is that there are multiple programs. So honestly, you can even become a product manager after you do a master's in supply chain management. You can even become a product manager after you do, say, MIT has something called an SDM program. Even you can become a product manager after that. So just to clarify, it can be completely your choice on what you want to choose, because it can land you to a similar job, but look at the other options you might have, right? So I think you might want to look at more from that perspective. The logic seems fine. He says one course is 50% cheaper than doing an MBA, and I can land up in the same job. The logic is great, but yeah, you should look at what are the other options maybe you will have after an MBA, and maybe more diverse options possible. Maybe with an MEM, the options are slightly more narrowed down to technology stuff. Maybe with an MBA, you can go into any industry for that matter.
Probability is slightly higher if you do an MBA compared to an MEM course. So if you want to risk that probability for cost, I mean, it's your call completely.
Right. I'm just looking at while going up the ladder, does a growth PM get into strategy roles, or does it depend on company to company?
Typically depends on company to company. It's not necessarily the growth PM has to move to strategy. Growth PMs have their own product leadership roles as well. There is, growth PM directors, then growth PM VPs and whatnot. So it depends on, how mature the company is. Some really mature companies even have growth PM SVPs and whatnot, right? So and some really, niche companies, new companies would not have many senior leadership roles in growth PMs. So it really depends on the company. If you want to be a growth PM, you could go as a growth PM. If the company says that, hey, if you want to be a growth PM, but you got to get into a strategy, then strategy is also a way to go.
Right. All right. So I think I've pretty much covered most of the questions, and we've answered all the questions too. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this session. And I hope, we helped you, and we gave you some insights on, how to go about with this, how to become a product manager, how can MBA help you, and how can AI help you become a product manager. Okay, somebody is asking, do you have some courses, certification courses for product management? There are tons. You just search on LinkedIn, do #product management. You'll get tons of courses where you can take. Any suggestions you have, Gautham, for Samrat?
There are way too many. Just search on Google. There are way too many courses with reviews. You could. There are. I don't know if you're looking for an online course or a cohort course. So there are a lot of courses. There are a lot of institutes that offer. Just go with. Figure out. Google and then check the reviews. You should find. You should be able to find a lot of courses, right? And yeah, if you have more questions, I've just shared my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to follow me. Feel free to ask your questions, post there. I know that I spent a lot of time on the content, couldn't answer a lot of questions, but feel free to post your questions there.
Right. So yeah, so I think we pretty much focused on what we wanted to focus on in this session. So thank you so much, Gautham, for that. And we have, kind of answered all the questions that people have.
Okay, great.
If we have missed anything, please feel free to reach out to us. Our, email IDs. Thank you, Chetan. This really means a lot to us. That we were able to provide value. I know this is a very short 1 hour. I don't know how 1 hour went away, but I'm so glad we did that. And I'm so glad, Vallabh, you found this informative. Thank you so much. We would love to do more sessions like this on different topics. So please feel free to drop us an email, suggest of what kind of topics you would like to, talk about. Yes, you can use AI to generate prompts.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice weekend. Thank you, Gautham. You've been amazing as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shri. Thanks everyone for being so
Thank you,
engaging.
guys.
Love the session. See you. Bye.